You're listening to the Kelly Green Hour for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter, at ANY Podcast, or visit us on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour here on the Always Next Year podcast. As we're back to talk another Philadelphia Eagles loss, this time to the Dallas Cowboys, as they fell 37-10 in a game that, in reality, probably wasn't that close, as the Eagles got outplayed, outcoached, outmanned by their division rival in a game that meant first place in the NFC East. I'm your host, LJ Harrell. Joining me today, as always, is Connor. Connor, how's it going, my friend?
It's going. It's another day. It's another week of losses, but the Flyers kind of helped soothe the loss last night.
Yeah, that doesn't help me.
And
it helps you, but it doesn't help me.
And we have the Sixers opening their season tomorrow.
That sure as hell doesn't help me. I hate that team with a passion.
There's no winning with you.
Let me see. The only saving grace would be the Phillies signing Joe Girardi, which means the way things have been going for me, they're not going to sign Joe Girardi. He's going to end up with the Mets. But that's a different story for a different day.
I have a feeling they will. That I don't know if you follow this guy on Twitter. It's like Las Vegas something. He's the one who called the Bryce Harper signing and the Anthony Davis signing, and he reported Joe Girardi signing with the Phillies.
Well,
so
we'll see how it goes, because he's pretty much given the New York Mets the last chance, as he's there. I think he was either there today or he'll be there tomorrow. But you know, if the Mets give him what he wants, gives him the money, give him whatever, he ain't coming back to Philly. But I will digress. I want Joe Girardi to be the Phillies' next manager, but we'll see how that goes. All right, so yes, the Philadelphia Eagles. Sunday night, a game that meant first place in the division. We remember what Coach Pederson said last week, that the Eagles were going down to Dallas. They were going to win, and they were going to come home first place in the NFC East. That did not happen. They looked woefully unprepared. They had 2 turnovers within the first 5 minutes of the game. They were down 14-0 before you could blink an eye. And from there, Dallas was able to impose their will on the Eagles. What the hell is going on with this football team? Why can't they start faster? Why are they always mistake prone? Just why are there issues up and down the roster, up and down the lineup? And every time they touch a football field, something goes wrong. What are your thoughts, Connor?
I mean, I think at this point we have to stop saying we need Deshaun Jackson back, because I think this goes far beyond Deshaun Jackson. This goes far beyond whether we got Jalen Ramsey, didn't get Jalen Ramsey. It goes far beyond the secondary. This is a culture. This is a culture issue. This is I don't know if Doug Pederson's losing the locker room, because he had that anonymous source last week, anonymous person who talked to Josina Anderson. Then this week you have Malcolm Jenkins calling people out. You have Nelson Aguilar, who I don't even know why he's on the team still. I would honestly trade him away for nothing at this point. But I think, I got to admit, I think it's something to do with the culture. The age of the team doesn't help. Whatever Doug Pederson and Jim Schwartz's culture is, Jim Schwartz has played with the same defense since he came to Philadelphia, and it's not working. It's not getting us wins. It's not stopping anybody, especially on 3rd and long. I just think it's a culture thing. I think something needs to shake up, and you can go out at the trade deadline. You can get whoever you want, but I just don't think it's going to fix this season. I want to be positive, but I just don't think it's a in-season fix that needs to happen for this team. But that's not to give Howie an excuse. He has to make some moves to show that he cares about this team. And he has made a couple moves to get younger at the defensive tackle position, which was nice to see. It just sucks that they're both undrafted people from practice squads.
It's like this is a mirror image of the Philadelphia Phillies. They get Drew Smiley, who was released. They get Justin Vargas off a team that was pretty much giving him away. Howie Roseman. All right, look, Emmanuel Sanders got traded today. I'm not saying that I would have given up. They got the Niners gave up a third and a fourth for Sanders and a fifth. Now, yes, he's a 32-year-old receiver. I think on the last year of his deal. Now, I'm not saying that I would have given that up, but if you could have packaged something to get Chris Harris with that, you do it. I mentioned it. I've been mentioning it a lot lately. The Eagles don't have a great track record of drafting players. It's hard to miss when you draft in the top 5 unless, you're the Raiders drafting Jamarcus Russell. But so when you're at number 2, you can get Wentz. You're at number 4, you can get Lane Johnson. You're at number 11 or 12, you can get Fletcher Cox. They're players that you expect to hit on. But if you're drafting in that 15 to 20, 20 to 25 range, you're going to draft the Danny Watkins, the Marcus Smiths. It took Brandon Graham a couple years to get under his feet. So I'm willing to trade away picks to improve the team. The freaking Patriots and the Niners, who are both undefeated, are still going out and finding ways to improve their team. The Patriots gave up a second-round pick for Mohamed Sanu.
Which,
is Mohamed Sanu worth a second-round pick? Hell no. But it's going to be the 64th pick in the draft. Probably,
I was going to say it's essentially going to be a third-round pick. But
so, the Eagles, Howie Roseman has to find a way to make a move. Now, we've gotten to this argument about Jalen Ramsey. The one thing, okay, and you said
we're not going to do this. No, we're going to do this straight now.
Listen. Because you said, is Jalen Ramsey going to block? Is Jalen Ramsey going to catch passes? Is he going to fix the running game? He plays corner. But the one thing he gave the Rams, even if it's a small sample size, but the one thing he gave the Rams was a new attitude. Even Aaron Donald said it. The veterans on that team said he came in with a swagger, and it helped the entire roster. It doesn't just help the defensive secondary. It helps the entire roster. That's what the Eagles need. They need new blood. They need somebody that has an attitude, somebody that's going to come in with a, don't F with me. I'm coming in. I'm being the best at the position, and we're taking it down. That's what they need, and that's what Jalen Ramsey would have brought to this team. And he's 24. I'm going to keep bringing this up. He's a 24-year-old who's the best at his position, who has another year left on his deal. And even if you didn't sign him, you could have franchised him. But the Rams got a guarantee from him that he wasn't going to hold out if they don't give him a new contract this year. But he knows he's going to get a contract from somebody. So he is on the Rams for at least the rest of this year and next year as the best cornerback. So he goes to a team that the Eagles are going to have to compete with again to try to get to a Super Bowl if the Eagles are able to make the playoffs. That's why you go out and make a move. There's risk, there's reward to everything, but you have to find a way to improve a weakness on your team. The secondary is a weakness. Go out and make a move. It could have been Jalen Ramsey. It was not. Chris Harris, Xavier Howard, Desmond Trufant, because there are teams out there that are going to be selling. Find a way to go out there and improve this team, or the season, which we had such high expectations for, is going down the drain.
Yeah, and I don't deny the swagger that Jalen Ramsey brings. It's quite obvious the attitude that he brings and what he brings to the field for a team. I'm just not trading 2 firsts and a fourth for swagger, for attitude, for 2 years.
For the best player at his position who's only 24, who you can have for the next 5 years.
the issue that I see there is not there's no guarantees you get him for the next 5 years. He says he will put that commitment. Let's be serious though. If he's getting franchise tagged year over year, he's not gonna stand for that. If he remains the best player at his position over the next 2 years, he's not going to take a franchise tag, and we know that, and that's the reality of the situation. You mentioned it, the swagger, the attitude. that he's not going to put up with being the best player but not getting the best player money. And I mean, having the best player at that position would be really great for us, but it addresses literally a singular need and gives away 3 assets that we could have used to get other pieces.
Because they've been so good at drafting players lately.
I don't mean in that respect. Someone said that on Twitter too. I don't mean in that respect. I mean in the respect that you could go and you could take a first, those 2 firsts, and you could go and get 2 really good players with a first and a first without giving up 2 firsts for a guy who was drafted in one singular first round at one point in his life. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I was not willing. I agree. I would not be willing to give up that price tag. I would not be willing to pay that price tag because you automatically take away 3 assets, and there's not a whole lot that you can go into that trade deadline with. You have Jalen Ramsey, and then what? You can't get anyone who makes your team leaps and bounds better.
You have the best player at his position. You have the best player at his position who's only 24, who fills a massive need. And
so is he also going to step into the linebacker role? Is he going to step in beside Fletcher Cox? Is he going to catch the ball?
You said the same thing about the Rams getting him and on the offensive side of the ball, and the Rams put up 30 points or whatever it was on the Falcons.
Come on.
We lost to the Falcons, so I don't even want to hear it.
Yeah, but look at where they are now. I think if we played the Falcons next week, we probably could redeem ourselves.
I don't know. I think if we played the Jets next week, we might lose to the Jets. So I wouldn't say all that. The way the Eagles are playing now. But listen, he didn't start because it was he only practiced I think 1 or 2 days with the Rams, but he didn't start. But when he went out there, he was on Julio. You know how many touchdowns Julio scored against the Rams? 0.
You know how many touchdowns Julio has all year?
He has a touchdown he scored the game-winning touchdown against the Eagles.
Yeah,
that's all that I remember.
I have him in fantasy. He might have 2 on the year.
I have him in fantasy on one of my teams too. But he scored the game-winning touchdown against the Eagles on a play that he should have never scored on. If you have somebody the caliber of Jalen Ramsey, Jalen Ramsey would not have been on that double move by Amari Cooper. We're gonna have to face, and I'm not saying Mohamed Sanu is a legit number 1 corner, but our number 1 receiver. But look at the back end. Look at the schedule. We have the Bills coming up. Josh Allen shouldn't beat us through the air, but who knows? Trubisky shouldn't beat us through the air, but Allen Robinson is a good wide receiver. The Patriots have Josh Gordon, have Edelman, have Sanu. They have weapons. You could throw him on one of them and lock it down. Then we get the Seahawks, Tyler Lockett. You could throw him on him and lock him down. And if you lock down the best offensive receiver for the other team, you can do different things on the other side with the weaker corner that you have. You can disguise things. You can double team on that side. It would help this Eagles overall team because I'll say it again. He brings a different attitude. It brings just a different look to your team, and you get you feel better. There's a reason why somebody, I don't know who it was, said that, they were mad that they didn't bring in Jalen Ramsey because everybody knows the talent that Jalen Ramsey is. He is worth everything that the Rams gave up. Yeah, because you're not going to draft somebody who's as good as him, and he's still young.
And you know what? Howie shouldn't go in. Howie should not have the mentality that I'm keeping those first to use them for draft picks. Howie should go out and say, I'm going to get multiple people to help in multiple holes on this team because you can literally find a hole anywhere on this team. Look at the linebackers. Look at, I know we're avoiding the topic of the Cowboys, so let me bring it back around. Look at the way that as soon as Zeke or anybody got to that second level against us, we couldn't stop anything. We couldn't tackle anything.
Nigel Bradham was hurt. We found out the huge importance of Nigel Bradham with him not being in there. He's a guy that plays 100% of the snaps. They missed him. So they missed him huge. They made a mistake, I believe, releasing Zach Brown, knowing that Nigel Bradham wasn't going to play. You know how I feel about Nate Jerry. You know my feelings.
But at the end of the day, it was not just the linebackers. The ends were missing. Tackles were missing. Safeties were missing.
I have been low on our defensive ends other than Brandon Graham all year. Derek Barnett, I think, is a bust right now. If I had to put a label on him right now, he is a bust. He doesn't do anything for me. Our backups, everybody was high on Josh Sweat. I was not. Vinny Curry, not known to rush the quarterback. He's more of a run stopper. Deshaun Hall is somebody that's been on practice squads, during his career. So, we know you don't really know what you're going to get with him. They released Akeem Spence. Hopefully Jernigan comes back. Malik Jackson not being there. The injuries are a real thing for the defensive tackle position. Which is
a whole nother thing to address, because the fact, they were talking about the Cowboys and how great their medical staff is. Why, when we watch the Eagles play, do they never talk about our medical staff? Our medical staff is terrible. You want to talk about making some changes? Let's make some changes there, because we bring people back too early. Somehow these people are out week to week, and it turns into being out for the season. There is some major issues within the medical personnel of our team, and the inability to distinguish what the hell is going on. We thought that Deshaun Jackson would be back in a couple weeks. We're now 6 weeks going into week 7 deep, and we have no knowledge except it's his abdomen. That is it. They're not calling it anything. They're not saying it's anything. Maybe some improvements can be made there as well, to make sure that our players stay healthy, to make sure that our players stay in good physical condition, because teams should not, year over year, and it's us and it's the Chargers, year over year, the injuries pile up. We used 13 cornerbacks last year, and we can look elsewhere, because the cornerback position was not the only position of concern. And then you look at the Chargers, injuries left, right, and center. And I can't understand it. It makes no sense to me. We could bring anybody in, and they would be injured probably. We could have Jalen Ramsey, and he might be hurt today.
I don't know, but we're talking about the Eagles who actually replaced their medical staff last year. That didn't help. There is a real need, or this is a real thing. The Eagles need to figure this out when it comes to the medical staff.
It's a culture thing. It's something is going on. There is something that the coaches are saying, something that the coaches are doing, something that the coaches are telling the medical staff to do and the medical personnel to do, or whatever it might be. There is something within the culture that is causing this issue with the medical personnel, and that is currently causing the issue with the rest of the team as it stands right now.
I mean, I don't know what it is, but I want to get back to the game, unfortunately. So the Eagles in 6 of their 7 games have been down double digits in every game. The only game against Luke Falk, who's not an NFL quarterback, so they were lucky they didn't face Sam Darnold that day. But obviously turnovers, it doesn't help. Dallas Goedert fumbles the football. DeMarcus Lawrence, who has never sacked Carson Wentz, gets around Lane Johnson, who had one of his worst games I've ever seen, and has a strip sack. And you can't really blame the defense when the offense is giving Dallas the ball, in the red zone. They have a short field, and you can only ask the defense to do so much. But it's unbelievable that the Eagles just can't start fast.
Well, and I think one of the things that frustrated me about that game, especially the first half, was Doug Pederson's play calling yet again. The defense finally, at the start of Q2, finally got the ball in the offense's hands. The offense had a chance. I think at that point we were down 17-0, and they opened that up with 3 straight runs, and then we punt the ball away. In what world are you running that ball 3 straight times after a quarter where you literally put yourself way behind?
Well, did you hear Doug Pederson's? They actually asked him that in his press conference. Did you hear his answer to that?
I did not.
He said that, which there was a picture, there was a hole, but Miles Sanders cut it or pushed it to the outside. If he would have went up the middle, he missed the hole. he would have had the first down. And if he gets the first down, we're not really talking about this right now.
We're probably not, but then go to Q3, where after he has an interview coming out of the tunnel, he says we definitely have to pass the ball more, and he goes out and he continues to run on the first 2 downs of like the next couple possessions. This is a man who doesn't know how to adjust the game. If you're down 17-0, I'm sorry, but you're not establishing a run. There's no way you're establishing a run. You cannot establish a run when you're down 17-0. You have to get that ball in the air and not to, like, I think the first half he went through and connected to like with 3 players. That's it. It was like Goddard.
Went through 8 first half passes. That should never happen.
No,
I
exactly.
seriously think that Doug Pederson is listening to the outside too much. Everybody's talking about, you need to find a way to start faster, receive the ball to start the game. They received the ball to start the game. It didn't work. They fumbled on the first possession. Everybody's talking about he needs to run the ball a little bit more. They ran the ball majority of the first half. They were down 27-7. Like, he needs to get back to being Doug Pederson from 2017. He needs to stop. I feel like the game plan and the calls are holding Carson Wentz back. Mm-hmm. Carson Wentz, you need to unleash him. And, we know that Doug Pederson calls the plays, but I'm going to bring this up again. He misses Frank Reich. Frank Reich didn't call the offensive plays, but during the week, he put the offensive game plan together. He's the one that was watching film of the opposing defense and was coming up with the plays. We see what the Colts are doing now. You see what Jacoby Brissett is doing now. They're a 4-2 football team. And they lost, or, their starting quarterback, Andrew Luck, retired in week 3 or week 4, week 3 of the preseason. Mm-hmm. So, it just shows how great of a coach Frank Reich is. Mike Groh is a problem. I don't think he gets the respect, or he commands the respect from Carson Wentz, from the other players in the offense. Because what does he do? Even his dad didn't really do much. Al Groh didn't do much in the NFL. Like, he was there a long time, but whether his offense is really that great, I don't think so. So you talk about a culture change. They need a coaching change at that offensive coordinator position. They need a coaching change, possibly at the defensive coordinator position. At the end of the first half, when Dallas got the ball back, there was less than a minute left, I think. Why are you playing prevent defense? You allowed Dallas to get however many yards they need, 20, 30 yards, and they kicked a 63-yard field goal. That should never happen.
No,
absolutely. Lack of physical defense, it annoys the hell out of me every week.
Oh, absolutely. It annoys me watching it ever. Even when a game's out of reach, it annoys the hell out of me, this prevent defense and just standing at the sticks and hoping that you get the tackle, which on this night, he should very well have known he wasn't getting that tackle. And the third down defense was terrible. Horrible. That was one of the most frustrating displays of third down defense to watch. Every time there was a third down, even when there was penalties in our favor, you'd get a 3rd and long situation. Like, the refs threw us a bone a few times, and he still gave up the yards. He still, after multiple penalties, would give up enough yardage. They were, I can't remember. There was one point where they were like first and like 30 or something crazy absurd. And in 3 downs, they ended up getting that first down again. It just makes no sense that the third down defensive strategy that he puts into it. Would it be any better for a secondary to play right up and be aggressive? Maybe not necessarily. We might get burnt, but some of those guys, that's how they play. They're a Jalen Mills and a Douglas and a Rasul Douglas who can put their hands on them for the first 5 yards and be aggressive, can slow down the play enough to allow the defensive tackles and ends to apply even more pressure. It might give them that added extra couple seconds, but when they're always playing 5 to 10 yards off, Dak Prescott has the time to find who he needs to throw to, who he wants to throw to. I think he already has it mapped out in his head as soon as the snap goes, because he sees who's playing where the double coverage could come from. It's so easy as a quarterback to see the play unfold when you see the safeties, they're 15 yards back, and you see your corners, and they're 8 yards back, and then the snap goes off.
I've seen too many times this season where the defense looks lost before a play. They have either 10 men on the field, 12 men on the field. They have people running off. That play at the goal line where Dak did a play action and Blake Jarwin was wide open. What the hell were the linebackers doing? Mm-hmm. Our linebackers are a joke without Nigel Bradham and Zach Brown. Kamu Hill, he's a special teams player. I don't care what anybody says. Nate Gary doesn't belong on an NFL team. TJ Edwards is a little too raw for me. I can't judge him. I was high on him coming in. I'm a little iffy on it. Obviously, him being a rookie, I don't think he's ready for them primetime lights just yet. He was out of position a lot when they were running the ball. The Eagles came into the game second in the league in rushing, allowing about 70, 72 yards a game. They gave up 170 plus yards to Dallas. The first time they gave up over 100 yards rushing to a running back in like a year and a half.
Probably since Zeke.
Zeke
was probably the last one.
But yeah, so whatever they need changes. They need philosophical changes offensively, philosophical changes defensively. They need to find a way to come back together as a team. They need to find their identity. What type of team are they going to be? Is this going to be a running team? Is this going to be a physical team? Is this going to be, Carson Wentz is leading them? They're going to be throwing it 50 times a game. They need to find out what they are. And Doug Pederson needs to get back to his aggressive ways because I think he is partly holding this offense back. It's not all Carson Wentz. Did Carson Wentz have a great game on Sunday? No. Mm-hmm. But the offensive line wasn't great. No receiver can get open. And we're going to talk about Nelson Aguilar. His comments after the game were a freaking joke. He could have freaking caught that football. He gave up. He alligator armed it. He could have dove for it. He can't track a ball to save his life. All these people, the Joe Gillios and Elliot Shore-Parsh, are saying it was a terrible throw. Carson Wentz was being hit as he threw it. He threw that ball 60 yards in the air. Yep. You have to make an effort for your quarterback. And Nelson Aguilar, you mentioned it earlier, he needs to go. Not a waste of $9 million.
I don't even care. Like, you could package him with a 5th round pick and get trash back, but it would probably, as long as that trash is going to be a little more useful on the field for us. This was a humongous opportunity when Deshaun Jackson went down for Nelson Aguilar to prove he is a big money receiver and he's worth the money heading into this contract offseason. And he literally proved to the NFL that he is not deserving of anything more than a couple $1 million, if he even deserves to be on a roster. And I mean, I think that play was perfect proof of how Pederson is holding Wentz back, because he uncorked that ball, and that was a perfect pass. That was a spot on pass. And the excuses are just no. ESP and Joe Giglio will do anything, will say anything to bash Carson Wentz because they hated the Carson Wentz contract from the minute it was signed. So you can't really trust those guys because they have an extreme favoritism to the I hate my franchise quarterback side of this equation. But I think that play, if that was Deshaun Jackson, that's a touchdown. If that was...
Well, Deshaun Jackson's the best tracker of a football I've ever seen.
If that was I know it's not possible, but if that was Alshon Jeffrey, he would have caught that ball and he would have went. Like, you literally put almost any of our other receivers in that situation, and I think that you're looking at a touchdown or at least a big gain. But
they really do miss the speed aspect of the offense because, Zach Ertz didn't get targeted until the second quarter, I think, of the game, because Dallas was double teaming him. Again, when you don't have a speed threat on the outside, they can just, single up the receivers. Alshon's not a burner. Nelson has the ability, but he can't freaking catch. Dallas Goedert was able to get behind the safety and scored the Eagles' only touchdown of the game. It was a great catch by him, great throw by Carson. But obviously the quarterback is the most important position, but he needs help. I don't care what anybody says. Aaron Rodgers doesn't do it all by himself.
No, and then Tom Brady doesn't do it all by himself.
Exactly.
Like, look at Julian Edelman. Like, you take Julian Edelman out of the equation, and maybe it's a whole different ball game with him. Like, there's certain people, every team, like, no quarterback does it alone or can do it alone. And I mean, like, maybe perhaps one of the best examples is right now Mitch Trubisky. He's terrible, and he doesn't have the greatest of weapons to support him either. So is he catching a lot more flack than maybe he should? Potentially, but I'm not going to defend Mitch Trubisky because they passed on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in that same draft. So it's really hard to defend that. But like, no, you need help. Like, I mean, you just look like in Q3, they flashed the stat that Carson Wentz was under a 53% pressure rate at that point in the game. And it did not get any better in the fourth quarter either. So a 53% pressure rate. So over half the times that he backed up, he had somebody in his face. He had someone coming down on him. He had the pocket collapsing. He didn't have a clean pocket. He's great when moving out of the pocket, and we know that, but no one got open. They showed some replays of plays where he came out of the pocket looking to make a play and nobody was open. Nobody was coming back to him. No one was making the effort to help him. And you can't expect him to do it all by himself, especially when he's being pressured over half of the game.
Yeah, and for Doug Pederson's sake, it's sad that he got outcoached by Jason Garrett of all people.
Oh, man, that was one of my keys to the game. That was my biggest key to the game. You had to outcoach the clapper, and Doug Pederson probably would have done a better job just clapping his hands instead of making play calls that night.
All I know is I hope Doug Pederson doesn't make any quote-unquote guarantees the rest of the year, because that didn't work out. His team should have came out and defended him. Dallas all week was saying, he's not playing. He's shut his ass up. This, that, and the third. They said they didn't care what he said, but, they got to come out and play anyway. And Dallas took that to heart, even if they didn't, say that it meant anything. But they took what Doug Pederson said to heart, and they came out and showed it. And the Eagles should be embarrassed. And if they're not embarrassed, if they weren't embarrassed after Minnesota, and if they're not embarrassed after what happened in Dallas, if they come out and lay another goose egg against the Bills, it's over for them. And the trade deadline is next week, and I don't expect Howie Roseman to make any moves this week. But if they lose to the Bills, he's not going to make a move. We'll be talking about a 3-5 football team who, though, Dallas last year was 3-5 when they traded a first-round pick for Amari Cooper, and we saw what that did for Dallas. So I won't, say it's 100% guarantee that Howie won't make a trade next week if they were to lose to Buffalo, but the chances of the Eagles making a move if they lose to the Buffalo Bills is very slim, because he's going to want to keep his draft assets, even though he sucks at drafting lately. He's going to have to keep them to try to make this team younger, because we already know Peters won't be back, Sproles won't be back, Jenkins or McLeod won't be back, or both. Who knows who else won't be back? But this is going to look like a different team next year. Mm-hmm. I agree with you, they do need to get younger, but they could have accomplished that if they were to get Jalen Ramsey. I don't want to. I'm just saying it because it's true. He's 24. That helps you get younger.
But you can also, he moves the needle a bit. But what if you take 2 first rounders and go and make yourself younger by trading this first rounder for Xavier Howard and this first rounder for a young receiver? At this point, I can't remember. Listen, I can't remember who's on the block. Okay, man, there's people all over the place that are on the block. So, you go and you make those 2 and the needle moves a lot younger at that point. But, I want to come back to a point that you made.
But who's trading a young receiver, though? Emmanuel Sanders isn't young. Mohamed Sanu is not young.
I think we have to hope for an Amari Cooper-like situation on that point. But, you just don't know. You never know. At this point, we sit back and hope Howie can work some magic, but he hasn't looked very magical since the 2017 offseason when he built the team that brought us home that Super Bowl. But I do want to go back to a point that you made about when the Dallas Cowboys were saying, shut the fuck up and stay in your lane kind of comments. It feels like these last 2 games, the Cowboys took it to heart. Minnesota took it to heart. Were they
the Eagles need to shut up.
Yeah, but
pretty much what needs to
are they were they both spiteful fan bases because the Cowboys were upset about a comment that Pederson made, and Minnesota was spiteful because we won the Super Bowl in their home?
It's not the fan bases that it's the team, because Zach Brown said it about the starting quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. He can actually have an effect on the game, and we saw what Cousins did coming out and exposing the secondary. It helps when you have Diggs and Thielen, but it's not the fan bases, it's the players, because the players are on the field. They can actually affect the game. And that's exactly what, Kirk Cousins did. And, you look, DeMarcus Lawrence got his first sack against the Eagles. Zeke had a 100-yard rushing day.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, we have to find something that motivates us. Like these, not just comments, not unnecessary comments.
We shouldn't need that. You're a professional player. Like, if you need comments to motivate you on a weekly basis, you're in the wrong profession. You shouldn't be motivated.
You shouldn't need it, but these teams find something that motivates them deep down. The Falcons wanted revenge. The Vikings wanted revenge. The Cowboys want to put those asinine comments to rest. And all these teams did. Comments or no comments, they did it. They found something that motivated them to beat the Eagles, to want to play well against the Eagles, to want to step their game up against the Eagles. And the Eagles basically have no motivation. They have nothing. They literally sit there and they're like, okay, these guys want some revenge. Let's let them have that revenge. Let's let Stephon Diggs have a game after complaining about not getting the ball thrown to him. Let's let Minnesota have this game.
If we're going with that logic, the Bills don't have LaShawn anymore. But Sean McDermott used to coach in Philly, was a defensive coordinator here. They have some motivating factor there. The Chicago Bears double doink last year, motivating factor there.
Exactly.
The New England Patriots, we beat them in the Super Bowl. Motivating factor.
We have to find that motivating factor.
We don't have it.
We don't, but you have to find something. You gotta.
Whatever what the motivating factor is? You're a 3-4 football team right now who was projected by a lot of teams or a lot of people to go to the Super Bowl. You are a subpar, mediocre football team right now. That should be your motivation. You should want to turn that around, because if you don't turn it around in the next 3 weeks, your season's over and you're golfing come January.
Absolutely, and damn right, that should be their mentality, but it feels like week in and week out that isn't. The one and only game where I saw that as their mentality is, man, we need to kick our asses in gear, was against Green Bay. That was the best game of football I've seen them play this season.
Doug's best coached game.
Exactly. Otherwise, there's really nothing to be proud of. There's really nothing to be happy about.
You want to know why though? They're a mentally soft football team. In physically soft, as we saw with Dallas, pretty much manhandled them. But they don't have it between the ears.
Well, and it feels like even our media has become mentally soft, because as soon as Malcolm Jenkins made that comment about calling people out, people were like, oh, so we're at the point now where we're going to call people out. Damn right, call people out. If this was 2017, the media would be all over that saying, yeah, call them out. You got to call them out. This team's got to step up. I actually
kind of disagree with you there. When Andy Reid was the coach, nothing got out. They may have fought in the locker room. They may have had screaming matches, meetings, and whatever, but they kept that stuff in house. That's what this team needs to do. Keep it in house. You don't have to like every one of your teammates. If you have a disagreement, go up to somebody, but don't do it in the media. Don't go behind somebody's back and be an anonymous source to Josina Anderson.
No, I completely hate that.
No, that's what the Eagles. That's what Andy Reid's Eagles did, and Ike Reese, Trey Tom, John Ritchie. They all say it. They had issues in the locker room sometime, but it was kept in house, and they dealt with it in house, and we never knew about it. And that's what you need. You don't, because if it gets out in the media, then we're always going to talk about it. If the media doesn't have any idea what's going on, you're not going to be talking about it for weeks upon weeks upon weeks, and that's distracting you from the upcoming game. Keep it in house.
I have no issue with the whatever. Malcolm Jenkins, he put a face and he put a name to the comments, and he can whatever he wanted to say, and he can then bring it back in house and do whatever he wants to say. But the anonymous shit, that's got to go. You can't. Doug Pederson can't stand for that. Doug Pederson has to stand up there and he has to say, whoever said that, let's get the name out there. Not to the public. Let's get the name out in front of the team right now, and let's deal with this head on right now, because you can't have that going forward. You can't. The anonymous stuff, no, that's childish.
Do you think they know? Do you think in the locker room? Because I don't trust Howard Eskins saying that it was Alshon Jeffrey.
God, no, I don't trust Howard Eskins.
Do you think inside the locker room they know who the anonymous source is?
I honestly don't think so. The sad reality is I do not think so. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Alshon Jeffrey, but I don't agree with the way Howard Eskin just kind of said he basically said it's Alshon Jeffrey. Josina Anderson is one of the best for keeping her sources anonymous. So Howard Eskin is not going to be the one who cracks Josina Anderson's code of anonymous sources. I'm sorry. But would it surprise me if it was Jeffrey? Not necessarily, but I'm not going to believe Howard Eskin. That's for sure. But I don't think the team does know. And I think that's one of the things that's bothering the team right now is that somebody's being anonymous and not bringing the stuff in-house. And, like, at least go to Doug Pederson. Go to your coach. Go, like, however you want to address it. Just don't go through Josina Anderson. Like, don't go through those people. It just doesn't make sense. It's not right.
Again, I'm of the belief they need to keep it in-house and don't let outside forces affect what could be a season in which you do something. But we're a long way from that. The Eagles just need to find a way to win a football game and get back to 500.
Oh,
now,
big time.
Before we finish it off, is Dallas that much better, or we just didn't play well and they're pretty much on par with each other?
You know what? A all healthy Dallas team, I honestly think this season, right at this very moment, is better than the Philadelphia Eagles. And all healthy, because we are, for the majority, healthy. We sit there and we talk about Deshaun Jackson, and now this week we talk about Nigel Bradham. We talked about Jalen Mills, but we only talked about Jalen Mills when we realized how completely bogus the secondary was. So, in large part, they got like 4 key players back, or they had 4 key players play. Was Tyron Smith looking his best? No. Which makes it even scarier to think that if Tyron Smith is not looking his best and he's getting beat on the outside by guys like Derek Barnett, that team can be even better. And Amari Cooper was not 100%. Michael Gallup's not 100%. There's a lot of people playing not at 100%. They didn't have Leighton Vander Esch for 2.5 quarters. So, I would say they're the better team. Are they a Super Bowl contender? God, no. I don't think anyone's coming out of the NFC East winning the Super Bowl. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that anyone from the NFC East is coming out for a Super Bowl party anytime soon.
Well, there are all the thoughts of 2 teams making it out of the NFC East into the playoffs. That's not happening. It's going to be a division winner who could probably be 8-8, 9-7 at best.
Yeah, because the strength of the NFC right now. Yeah, any dream of the Cowboys or the Eagles making a wild card run?
There's a possibility that 3 teams from the NFC West can make it. You have the Niners, who are undefeated. You have the Seahawks, who are a game or 2 behind them, and then you have the Rams.
1, I think, yeah.
Yeah, they're a game behind. Then you have the Rams, who, if they can hit their stride, that's a good team. So, I mean, and then in the NFC, you have the Saints, who are going to make it. And if you look at the NFC, the North, Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit. Only 1 team in the NFC East is making it. So the Eagles have to win this division, which means you have to make improvements, which means you have to play better, and you have to stop goddamn starting games so freaking slow.
Oh, no doubt. That is the biggest thing. They have to turn that around ASAP. No more of these slow starts. If you have to come out and throw the ball on first down, good. Change the pace of the whole game, but don't listen to me.
Because every time Carson Wentz is under center, they run the ball. They never do a play action out of that. Never.
Yeah, so, and like the RPO, like it's like non-existent on this team after Nick Foles literally was the driving force of the RPO in the NFL. in 2017 and in 2018 for the short time drive into the playoffs he had for us. So, I mean, but Doug Pederson, please don't listen to us. Plan your own game. Shut out the outside noise and plan your own game and go back to be aggressive. Go back to being the Doug Pederson we knew and we loved and was helping Nick Foles become a $22 million quarterback.
All right. So before we head out, the Eagles face the Bills this week, and I know we're going to be doing our preview show later in the week. Your other favorite team, the Buffalo Bills. Quick preview on the Bills.
Their defense is damn good, but their offense, on the other hand, I think
Josh Allen's going to be running a lot.
This could be a real defensive game. Like we were talking about the last couple weeks of shootouts.
Or Zay Jones got traded.
Zay Jones got traded,
yeah. They have
John
Cole
Brown.
Beasley, John Brown. John Brown will have 150 yards against us probably.
Guaranteed. He's one of there's at the end of this past week, there's only 2 wide receivers in the NFL with 50-plus yards in every game of the year, John Brown and Michael Thomas. So he's guaranteed 50-plus. But beyond that, what else will he do? I think that we can stop them in that way. I think it's going to be a defensive war, like I said. I think this one could be a lot lower scoring game. Josh Allen, I feel like he's yet to truly hit his stride as a quarterback. He still likes to tuck the ball and run. He likes to hold on to the ball way too long. Yeah, exactly. But throw it away. He doesn't make the decision in his mind to throw it away. He'd rather run, curl up in a ball, and take the 10-yard loss.
This is another game that I know we'll talk about it more later in the week, but the offense has to find a way to move the ball because you mentioned it. They are a very, very good defense. Sean McDermott takes pride in that. And, they have a lot of studs. Their safeties are really good. Jordan Poirier, who used to be an Eagle, Michael Hyde.
They got Tre'Davious White on the outside, Ed Oliver on the inside.
Yeah, they are a really good team. But we will discuss that later in the week as the 5-1 Buffalo Bills host year 3-4 Philadelphia Eagles. Connor, final thoughts before we head out?
That was just I put downright ugly, putrid showing on both sides of the ball. So that if we're making a final comment on the Cowboys, that would be the final comment. And Howie, for the love of God, I don't care if we're 3-5, you got to make some moves. And it's got to be for younger. No more 30-year-old players. That's why I'm okay with avoiding Emmanuel Sanders, staying away from Mohamed Sanu. Get younger. For the love of God, get younger.
And it's a shame there wasn't a 24-year-old cornerback who was the best at his position available.
Here we go.
Thanks for listening to the Kelly Green Hour here on the Always Next Year podcast. You can rate and review us wherever you're listening to us. Give us 5 stars or not, but we prefer 5 stars. Let us know how we've done. If you have any questions, comments, anything, just let us know. You can reach us on Twitter at ANY Podcast. Connor's at Connor10. That's Connor TEN. And I'm at LJ Harrell 54. That's LJ HARRELL 54. The Philadelphia Eagles are 3-4 after falling to the Dallas Cowboys 30. What was the score? 37-10.
37-10.
Ugh. Eagles Bills this week. Connor and I will be back with a preview of the game for this Sunday. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for listening to the Kelly Green Hour here on the Always Next Year podcast.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with a win. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.